Hey everyone, it's Dr. Shalini Gupta at the Dermatology Laser and Vein Center, and today I'm going to talk to you about threads. So we can use threads in a variety of different body areas, and these threads are made of degradable materials which help to stimulate collagen and to give an immediate lift to the area of treatment. So you can essentially get like a facelift effect or a body lift effect without surgery instantly, and that effect can last anywhere from 12 months to 18 months, but the collagen stimulation effect that the threads cause, in addition to the immediate lifting, will also give a more long-term improvement to the area. So it's a great way to not only get a lift, but also to rejuvenate the collagen in the skin and improve skin texture and tone at the same time. And when I show you some pictures, you'll see what I'm talking about. So threads are a fairly easy procedure. They are done with these little cannulas, and there are different types of threads. So some threads are barbed in that they have little spikes coming off of the threads in all different directions, and those are the ones that give the maximum amount of lifting. So when those are threaded into the skin in one direction, and then they're gently tugged back, and then the skin is kind of massaged over those barbs, it gives an immediate lift effect, and the barbs help to hold the tissue up. And then we also have smooth threads and coiled threads. So smooth threads are great for any area where you just want to improve the skin texture and the skin quality. And it's often nice to use them both in conjunction. For example, if you want a lift, but you also have a lot of sun damage and wrinkling in the skin, you may want to have some smooth threads placed. If there are areas where there are deeper lines, we might use the coiled threads because they are have a little bit more surface area with the coils, and that allows for greater collagen stimulation and a bit more volumizing of that area. So like, for example, a good area to use a coiled thread might be in the 11s in the glabella to give that volume if those lines are present even at rest. So threads can also be used on different body areas besides the face. Of course, we can use them on the stomach, we can use them on the thighs. It's really good for that loose skin around the thighs. If you've watched some of our other videos, of course, you know we have all kinds of procedures to help tighten the skin and stimulate collagen. Threads are an additional modality we have to give you skin tightening and texture improvement in your skin, and it's an art in itself. So it's really actually a very cool procedure. We can also use threads in the arms very nicely, and let me show you kind of all the different areas where we actually can use the threads, and this just gives you an example of different types of threads and where they can be placed. So on the face, to give you a facelift, around the eyes you can get a brow lift. We can give you a nice contouring of the chin. It will actually even deal with some of the submental fat in the process. And what the threads do, in addition to giving a lift and stimulating collagen, is it also improves the circulation of the area. So the most common materials that the threads are made of are PDO and PLLA. PDO stands for polydioxanone, and it is a medical grade protein that biodegrades. It's completely safe, and in the process it helps to relax tendons and muscles, but it also helps to vascularize tissue, and in that sense it produces neocollagenesis or new production of collagen. PLLA is commonly found in a filler called Sculptra that we use commonly, and Sculptra is composed of these PLA molecules in sort of a powdery form. But when we use the PLLA with the threads, such as with some of our silhouette threads, then it already has the PLLA embedded into the thread, and it helps to stimulate collagen along with giving the lifting effect right away. So these are some other areas. For example, we can treat the chest, we can treat the upper lip area, hands, we can treat the chest, we can treat arms, stomach, buttocks, thighs, any part of the body really where there is some skin laxity and where you need a bit of a lift without surgery. This is just an example again showing the face and all the different indications that the threads are good for, including forehead, brow lift, cheek lift, and so on. Really good for that sulcus around the mouth. And these are some of the different types of threads and how they can be placed and how they would be pulled upwards. Another example of just a plan for someone who would have crow's feet that could be softened with the smooth threads. The barbed threads could be used to lift the brows, and then we can use twisted threads in the glabella area. So all of these thread procedures are really an art form, and it's a very customized procedure in terms of choosing which threads to use where and what we're trying to accomplish, and how they're going to be placed also, and how many threads are going to be placed. So all of that is factored in. This is just a close-up showing what the barbs look like on the barbed PDO threads. And they're really not so scary, but they do give good anchoring to the tissue once they're just kind of tugged back and pulled back. This is how the thread is actually administered. So it goes in one direction, and after you reach the end of where the thread needs to be placed, it gets released and the cannula gets pulled out and the thread is left behind. So essentially it is going with a little blunt cannula that holds the thread stays in the skin, cannula comes out, thread stays in. This is an example of what the procedure might look like, with the thread being placed and then being gently tugged back. Here are some before and after examples of the face. For example, after PDO thread treatment, you can see a really nice improvement in the jowls. That happens very immediately, and also notice the improvement in the skin quality and texture as well, because again, it helps to stimulate new collagen fibers. Here's an example of PDO threads on the thighs, a very nice significant change. And here's an example for arms with that loose skin and how it can be tightened. And here's an example of PDO threads placed at the lip border and giving a nice volumization to the lips that can last anywhere from 12 to 18 months and potentially a little bit longer with the neocollagenesis. This is the silhouette soft lift. This has the little cups of Sculptra. So these little cups are actually made of Sculptra or PLLA particles, which then stimulate your own collagen growth in the skin, along with giving the lift. And here's an example of the PLLA thread lift. So the threads are very safe. They are done strictly under local numbing. So usually the point where the thread is inserted, I put a little bit of lidocaine locally, and then a little needle is poked through the skin. This needle creates an opening large enough for the little cannula to go through. So the cannula is threaded through a path that is pre-marked and pre-designed. And once we reach the end of the, where the thread needs to go, the needle is twisted a little bit, it releases the thread, and the cannula is pulled out, and the thread remains in place. And we can do that pretty much anywhere on the body. Sometimes with the Nova threads, we're using like 20, 30, 40 Nova threads at a time, whereas on the face with the PDO threads, it's not quite as many threads all at once. So the threads, once they're placed, they cause a bit of an inflammatory reaction. There can be a little bit of discomfort with the threads. You might feel a little bit of a burning sensation. You might sometimes feel the little barbs just kind of poking through your skin. These symptoms can last in some patients just for 24 hours, and in some patients they can last for 2 or 3 weeks. But of course, all of those symptoms gradually subside. You can see an immediate lifting and tightening effect from the thread, so it's really nice that way. Occasionally we'll see a little dimple form in the skin if the thread is not put into the right planes, and that of course is very important and requires experience in terms of placement of the thread so that it goes into the right plane and comes out nice and smooth and gives a nice lifted effect without being choppy appearing. and then you can sometimes get a little bit of bunching in the skin. All of these can be easily corrected with a little bit of manipulation. And like I said, the threads do dissolve on their own with time. We have not seen any allergic reactions or any problems with the threads. We do recommend that you do not take ibuprofen or a blood thinning medication prior to having the Nova threads or any type of thread such as Euro threads, because it can increase your chances for bruising and potentially bleeding. And then you also want to avoid any kind of radio frequency treatment right after having the threads placed, because the RF energy could potentially break down the threads. And we also recommend that you don't open your mouth too wide or have great movement in the areas where the threads are placed for at least 72 hours to allow those threads to settle in and without dislodging them essentially. So that's it about Threadlifts. I think it's a great procedure. I think it's a really cool innovation in aesthetics, and you should consider it if you have any concerns that the threads could treat, and we'd be happy to go over kind of a plan of how to place them and artistically sculpt you into a better you. So thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel when you get a chance, and have a wonderful day.